Hey guys, welcome back to the Real Estate Sales Summit. We have got a very special guest with us today, Dr. Gregory Charlop. So let me give you a little bit of background on Dr. Charlop before. Graduate of Stanford University School of Medicine. So this is not an online thing. This is a real medical doctor, physician, and wellness expert for elite performers. So really cool. Author of Real Estate at a Crossroads, which is available on Amazon and was #1 on Amazon for new real estate releases, I believe, as well. And also the CEO of Visionary Remodels. So really, really cool stuff. But welcome, Dr. Charlop. I appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to be here. I should tell you, just for clarity, that Visionary Remodels is a former project. It doesn't exist anymore, but you can see I like virtual reality stuff. I've got a virtual background here.
Yes,
and it's something that I think people should use more often.
Absolutely.
So if you look for Visionary Remodels, you'll be disappointed by it, but it did get me into the whole idea about how important it is about aesthetics and design and how you can use computers to make things look cooler or better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And something that I'm sure we'll get into, we'll touch on briefly or maybe even in depth during this as well. So, so give the audience, so they can get to know you a little bit and how you got in, how the heck did you go from physician to getting into the real estate side of this? Give us, what's the story there?
Well, so the real truth, so I'm an anesthesiologist,
Yep.
And I specialize in kids and adults as well. And I'm also interested in wellness medicine. I'm just going to make a quick shameless plug. I do have a book coming out about wellness medicine for elite performers. So look out for that. That may be out maybe around the time of this conference.
Okay.
But originally I got into real estate because I sort of came of age in like the 2005, 6, 7, 8 era when housing prices were going up and down. I lived in the Bay Area at the time, so it was pretty wild to see these fluctuations. So for someone like me who grew up in Los Angeles, and I used to always go to Vegas, and I used to love gambling in Vegas, real estate sort of struck me as like, wow, this is kind of fun, this is exciting. And so I made some investments, and that actually worked out pretty well. It was a fun, for those of you active at that time, it was kind of a fun time to be into real estate. And I think that's where I got the real estate bug going. And then after that, I thought, well, I love technology and I love learning how things work and the process. And so I started learning more about the real estate industry. And that's what really caught my attention because I realized that #1, the real estate industry is really archaic, the way a lot of it works. I mean, it's so like antiquated in so many ways. But #2, there's a lot of cool new tech products and tech approaches to things that I think can make real estate better. So that's what really got me interested. And then I had a real estate technology conference, the Real Estate Tech Expo, and then I wrote Real Estate at a Crossroads, which, like you said, you can get on Amazon, or there's also an audio book. You can get it from Audible as well. So that's where I am now, and now I go and I try to speak, and kind of like you, my goal is to help real estate agents and brokers and brokerages kind of embrace technology and kind of know what to expect in the future so they can kind of be ready.
Well, so wait a minute. So you went from liking to do a little bit of gambling and card playing and things like that in Las Vegas, where you have no walls or you have no windows, no clocks on the walls,
Right.
To the real estate world where it's all about aesthetics.
Right.
I love it. Of course, it works though. It keeps you in there. So
it keeps you in there because you don't know what time it is. The drinks keep coming. You don't have to pay for them.
Yeah,
they've got it down to a science.
Yes, they do. They do. All right, so let's get into it then. The technology thing's interesting. So, basic question, and I hear this a lot. Do you think technology will help or replace real estate agents?
So that is a really good question, and almost everybody I speak to asks that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. The answer is yes and no. Now, I think that for agents that either don't embrace it or aren't very good, technology will be a killer because there's other people that will be good with technology or good in real estate and they'll probably mow you down. But for people that embrace technology or are good with technology or are very specialized, I think it could actually be a boost. Now, one of the things we did in real estate at a crossroads, we interviewed a lot of CEOs from different real estate companies.
Mm-hmm.
And we interviewed, one of the people was Ken Potashner. He's the head of HomeBay, which is one of these sort of online brokerages.
Yep.
And what he told me is that, so this is what they do. So if you need a real estate agent, instead of having an in-person one, they're essentially on the phone for you, and you can communicate with them online and that sort of thing. So you do a lot of your own stuff with your house if you're buying or selling, but they are sort of there virtually to help you. And so what he was saying is that one of his agents can essentially do the work of like 50 real estate agents or something like that. I mean, it's a huge number because they have this very integrated system. The work comes directly to these real estate agents that are kind of working essentially from home to answer questions and help people out. And so it's really, really efficient. So you have one agent doing the job of like what would otherwise have been like 50 agents. Or if you look at Redfin, for example, which is one of my favorite companies to look at, one of their agents, in theory, can do the job of like 10 to 20 other real estate agents. And the reason is they're very efficient, their process is quite automated, and the agents don't have to spend time looking for clients because the agents come, the clients come to them.
Right.
So instead of beating the bushes and looking for clients, they basically wait, they have their calendar filled up. It's all done by Redfin for them. And they just go out and they serve one client after the next, after the next. So the point is that technology and these tech companies allow real estate to become more efficient. In other words, in the past, you could sell 100 homes. Maybe I'm making this up. Maybe you need 30 agents to sell 100 homes. Mm-hmm. Now you could sell 100 homes with, say, 10 agents. So what happened to those other 20 agents? Well, you don't need them anymore, you know? And the other thing is that technology is making the process of searching for homes more efficient, mm-hmm. even putting aside these tech companies. So if you think back, we talked about this in the book, but if you think back, say 30 years ago, say you wanted to sell your house, right? You would go to the Yellow Pages. I don't know if you remember, you probably remember the Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
You go to the Yellow Pages and you look up a company you've heard of before, you know, maybe Keller Williams or something, right? You'd look them up, you'd call them, maybe there'd be an agent doing floor time, you know, and then you interview them, and if you like them, they'd be your agent.
Right.
And say you were buying a house. And then what you would do is then you would come over and you look at those books. Remember those old books of the MLS?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember those. Yep.
They've got these little itty bitty pictures of houses, you know, and so what you would do if you were looking to buy a house, you go to the Yellow Pages, you find someone, say from Keller Williams, they come over, or you go to their office or whatever, you flip through these MLS books and you look at these little teeny tiny pictures. And then what do? You don't really know how good the house is, right?
Yeah.
It's a little picture.
Yep.
So you end up going and you look at like 30, 40, 50 houses because you have no idea, right? But now, and there's lots of research on this, most people are starting their search online. So what people are doing, and I know I've done this because I've moved a couple times, is you go online, you kind of know what you want, you look for things, you do a lot of your own research, and even if you're using a regular traditional agent, as traditional as can be, by the time I've walked in the door, I've pretty much narrowed down the house I want to a few options. And I just want that agent to kind of take me to those few options and kind of help me pick the right one and then walk me through the process of buying it. So rather than them showing me 30 or 40 houses, maybe they're showing me 4, 5.
Yeah.
So that makes it more efficient for them. And again, instead of spending, say, 100 hours with me to get me to buy a house, that agent might only spend 15 hours with me. Right? So when you have the whole process be more efficient, it means ultimately you need fewer real estate agents to do the same amount of work. So I think technology, in some ways, both of these internet brokerages and just more efficient, the transparent MLS, it makes the process more efficient and it causes us to need fewer agents.
Yeah.
But the flip side of the coin is if you're a good agent, if you know what you're doing, if you master technology, if you're able to make the system work for you, you can make more money than ever before. Because you can serve more clients in less time, you still are getting these commissions, and you can make money hand over fist.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting is you're right. We've got in mind, I'm in Sarasota, Florida. So we've got 7,300 agents in the MLS and our board of realtors. It's the same 80-20 principle, probably more like a 90-10 or a 95-5. And so the reality is we don't need 7,300 agents anyway.
Right.
And so what you're saying is this is going to help weed that out to make them more efficient, to get rid of the ones that aren't doing anything anyway. So here's a question then. So how do the agents out there embrace this piece of it? How do they get involved? How do they change their methodology to what they're doing now to working with the new technology moving forward?
Well, I think that's a great question. And there's a few different approaches to it, really. One approach, and we'll probably touch some of these later, but I'll just kind of summarize a few things now. One thing is, I think instead of being afraid of technology, you need to embrace it, and, I grew up like in, the 80s and stuff. So I'm a big like 80s rock fan. So it was easy like to go around and, when new music comes out, be like, like this is garbage. Like it doesn't compare to like what I like growing up. Yeah. And I think we all do that at some point, but you kind of have to force yourself to listen to the new music and you realize that like the new stuff isn't too bad either. You just have to be open to it. Yeah. And so, except for the 90s, they had some weak moments. But
we won't tell that. There's a lot watching this that were the 90s kids. So now
I know. I apologize. I think there's an 80s, 90s rivalry there.
Yeah, that's right.
But the thing is, so you have to look at technology and you have to look at it with an open mind and say, is this something I could use or not? And, the trouble, of course, even with that is there's an avalanche of new tech. So you don't want to get swamped and spend all of your time using new technology. But there are some tech tools that are pretty easy to use, that are not that expensive, that make you look good. So you probably need some kind of CRM. If you're just using Excel, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. You probably want to have some sort of automated email system that will help you reach out to people. You definitely should be on social media. I think maybe that'll come more later. I'm sure you've spoken with other people, but social media is big. You definitely want to be on that. Yeah. And you want to be doing some sort of thing that will create inbound leads. You want people to find you. So a certain number of homes will be sold by real estate agents that someone just knows. They knew them, or their friend used them, or they used them before. But a lot of real estate agents are going to be found by people doing online searches. And there's good data that this is happening more and more often. Oh, yeah. So absolutely. If I'm new to an area, I don't know anyone here, and I haven't run into anyone in the cereal aisle that seems like a good real estate agent, I'm hopping on my computer, right? And so I'm doing these online searches, and I'm looking for people that either Google brings me to, right, or Facebook brings me to, because they have some sort of lead magnet, like a good article in my area, some interesting article or some good video, or I'm looking for someone who has very good online reviews. And I think this is a very important area that hasn't really been discussed enough, which is the importance of online reviews. Right. I recently moved to LA from the Bay Area, so I don't know a lot of the restaurants and stuff around here. And some of them I'll just walk to because they're close and they look interesting. But there's a million restaurants, and so ultimately I'm going to pick them by their Yelp reviews. Yeah. And so I think more and more people are going to do this type of thing with real estate agents. So I think as a real estate agent, you want to find as many different ways for people to find you, as opposed to kind of the old system of, shouting at people, trying to get their attention, or having, shopping cart ads or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you brought up, the search engines, and that's why the tech companies are out there. And that's, that's the Zillows and the Trulias and the Realtor.coms and the Redfins. They figured out that agents are not keeping up necessarily with the technology, right? And so that's a huge opportunity for them. But then you also have, and you said something interesting too, you're going to go online and you're going to search on Google. You're going to look either for articles or videos, which means that agents need to be producing quality content to be able to compete, right? Right. So and then you're looking at reviews. So they've got to look at those two pieces of it as they move forward. Right. I think those two things are the most important, personally. And that seems like it would help compete with the tech companies too, because a tech company's not going to necessarily put out an article on, my local park across the street here in Sarasota. Right. Yeah. So all right. So out of those 73 in my area,
we have, I don't know if this is an accurate number, but I'm going to guess 5,000 of those people are part-time. What's this stuff do? What's the future for those part-time agents, and can they survive in this?
So I love this question. And partly I love it because it kind of hits close to home to me. I'm like I said, I'm an anesthesiologist and I'm part-time. And I did that in part because I wanted to be with my kids more. So I totally get the desire to be part-time because that's like something I really want to do too. So I get it and I like it and I want to support it. But I have to tell you that I think in some ways being part-time is harder now than ever before in real estate. And the reason is kind of for the things we mentioned before, which is you want to have as much of a presence out there as possible online for people to find you. So if you're working, say, 30 hours a week, and Lisa across the street there, she's working 70 hours a week, and let's say you're equally savvy, right? Let's say you're just as good as each other, and you're both making content and you're both doing all these things. Lisa's going to have a lot more reviews than you are, right? Lisa is going to have a lot more content out there than you will. She'll have more videos. She'll have more successful sales that she could brag about than you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and she's going to have just a much bigger digital footprint than you will. Yeah. So when someone is looking and they're trying to decide whether to use you or use Lisa, assuming they find you at all, you may just get buried under her stuff, but assuming they find you at all, they're probably going to go with her because she has more successful sales than you do, and she has more content than you do. And so she's probably going to catch their eye more than you will. So what I would say is if you want to work part-time, which again, I think it's great, there are a few options. One of them is to work for a company like Redfin or Home Bay or some of these other companies. Some of them are starting to dabble at hiring part-time people. And I actually think that those are the perfect places for part-time people. And I wish that Redfin embraced it a little bit more than they have, but I think that they're starting to do that. I think that Redfin will realize that they can attract a lot of great people if they allow you to work part-time. And their business model is actually, I think, good for that. But if you don't want to work for those places, I think there's two tips I would give you. One is do your darndest to get reviews. So if you're having fewer sales, you're not going to have as many sales as Lisa will. You really want to get reviews for the sales you do have. You don't want to let those slip by, right? So if she's selling 40 homes and you're selling 20, you really want to get those 20 reviews. And there are companies out there that will actually help you get reviews from your clients. So one of the companies is Bird Eye. There's a bunch of different ones. You can look it up. And what they do is like, they'll send messages to your former client. They make it easy, and the reviews get cross-posted on Google and Yelp and a bunch of other things. Yeah. And you really want to make a big deal. You want to ask them to do a review, And when I sold my house in the Bay, the real estate agent was very savvy with technology, which is actually, I think, how I found her in the first place. But she had this whole automated system, and she had a virtual assistant, and she had everything to make sure that I would do these reviews. And I was happy to do it. So one is get good reviews from the sales you do have. The other tip is to specialize. Now, so everybody is at least, I don't know, I can't speak for where you are, but here at least, like people want like 3-2s, right? They want 3-2 houses a lot of times, that type of thing. Yep. So that's what everybody's doing. There's fierce competition for that in the real estate world. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what if you targeted some different kind of category, like condos or land or large houses or different buyer categories like seniors or millennials or gay couples or people with kids or people, international buyers. There are ways that you could specialize, and I'm a big fan of specialization, that allows you to cut through the noise. You may not be able to take Lisa head on in the 3-2 business, yeah. But if you know all about condos in a certain area, or you know about international buyers, you might be able to crush her in that area, and that may be perfectly fine for how much you want to work. Yeah, no doubt. I think you're spot on that as well, because everybody wants to work their entire area, and they want to work the single-family homes, the multifamily homes, the condos, the ranches, the farms, the waterfront homes, and there is no specialization, so that
they don't set themselves apart from anybody else from Lisa. I mean, it's the same thing. Everybody wants all of them, and specializing and finding your niche, I think spot on that. Yeah, no doubt. So how do agents, if you're talking about a part-time agent potentially going to a Redfin or Home Bay that's there, the technology is also changing the way that agents have to interact with their brokerages. How is that affecting the agents, the brokerages, and what the relationship there is going to be moving forward?
So I love this, because I actually think this is one of the big underreported stories of the impact of technology on real estate, which is that for a number of reasons, agents are less dependent on brokerages than they used to be. So, to use the example we brought up earlier about, you wanting to sell your home, and you flip open your yellow pages and you find Keller Williams, and then you call them and you get an agent. In that case, the agent you found was dependent on Keller Williams, right? Because Keller Williams has enough cash that they can take out these beautiful advertisements in the yellow pages, these full page ads in the newspaper. Keller Williams has the money to do that. You don't. Right? So you need Keller Williams to do that advertising on your behalf. Then you need Keller Williams for all of the MLS access. You need Keller Williams because they have a nice photocopier in their office. You may need them for the office because maybe that's where you meet people. Mm-hmm. And you need them for all of the material support that they can give you. And so if you have to give Keller Williams a big cut, and I'm picking on Keller Williams, but not because I have anything against them. I'm just using them because they're a big name. So this is not intended in any way as a slight.
That's right. We had the conversation earlier, so it's still in your head.
It's not. I just sort of using it as an example.
That's right.
But if you're an agent at that time, you are comfortable with the fact that you would have to pay Keller Williams a lot of your commission, because your commission would have been zero without them.
Right.
Now look at it, fast forward to today. When I'm looking for an agent, again, I've sold a number of homes lately. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what brokerage most of my agents worked for. I don't know, and I didn't care. Yeah. It didn't matter to me whether they worked for Century 21 or Coldwell Banker or any of those things. That was totally irrelevant to me. What I cared about was, is this person going to do a good job for me, and what is their track record, and how do we get along personally? Right. So what I did is, when I was looking for people to sell a house, I went on, Zillow and Redfin stuff. You could see these, they're good MLS portals, and you could see who sold other homes in my area. I saw who sold these other homes. I found like the top 2 or 3 people. They had the best sales, right? Because that's the 80-20 rule you were talking about. Right. I called up those 2 or 3 people. I interviewed them, and I picked one. And if you ask me now, I'm still not sure what brokerage he worked for, right? I just knew that he did a great job and he had a great track record. So now I think, especially for good agents, I think the brokerage matters less and less. You don't need the brokerage to get the leads. You don't need the brokerage for the technological tools necessarily, if you know how to do that on your own. You certainly don't need the photocopier or the fax machine. I don't think you really even need the office. So in many ways, you could be a free agent without the brokerage, except for the legal requirement that you need to have a broker. Right. But just in terms of the business model, especially if you're good with using tech and you have some sort of team established, I'm a big fan of using virtual assistants. You probably want, some sort of virtual assistant as a transaction court, because you don't want to be calling the contractors to come over. But if you build up a team and use some tech, your brokerage is probably not that important. So in today's world, especially for the better agents, I think that most better agents are going to flock to whatever brokerage charges them the smallest commission possible, that lets them keep most of their own money, because they don't need that much. So I think this is a big, big, big change.
Which is interesting, because you still have a ton of the traditional type companies that are out there, but then you have a huge influx of those that are coming in that have that even virtual model to really make a benefit. So their overhead is less too. Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the ones that are growing fast, and there are a few. We've got one in our area that is just like that. That's a local that is now expanding all over Florida. And of course, you've got the major ones like EXP that's expanding, and some of the ones. So what happens with those? And I know we're going to get into this as a little bit as well when we start our other session, but so what happens to those brokerages, those traditional brokerages moving forward?
Well, I guess, well, I guess we could jump right into this part because I like this topic. So I think the traditional brokerages, so here's the fundamental problem, I think, for the traditional brokerages.
Yeah.
Let's say you're a brokerage and you've got some good agents and some new agents and some bad agents, and you've got this whole mix, right? And so you're spending on these offices and you're doing all this stuff. Ultimately, what will probably happen, and you know this, is the best agents get almost all the business.
Yep.
Now, unless this brokerage is cutting these agents a really sweet deal, which they may be, unless they're cutting them a really sweet deal, those best agents will eventually say to themselves, why am I with this brokerage, right? And they're going to go and they're going to either join something like EXP, like you mentioned,
right?
Or maybe they'll join Compass,
Yep.
if Compass is in the area. They'll go to one of these types of brokerages and they will leave you.
Yep.
So then what will happen is you'll be saddled with either these new real estate agents or these sort of subpar real estate agents, and it's going to be hard for you to survive as a brokerage.
Yeah, I'm spot on with you. I mean, we're already seeing that from some of the big traditional companies that are out there that are so brick and mortar heavy that, in our area, we have one of our major ones that has, I want to say there's 40 offices within 3 counties here and maybe 20 agents at each office, maybe. And that's not sustainable from where the technology is going, or at least it doesn't seem to be.
No, I agree. And I think, I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but I guess it'd probably be a natural time to sort of talk a bit about brokerages. But my own feeling is if brokerages want to compete, they need to do probably some combination of 3 things. One of them is they need to find a way that they can add special value to their agents that make people want to stay with them.
Yeah.
And so the special value could either be that they just have really exceptional technology and they're good at curating it and teaching people how to use it and helping them use it. That's one way, which I think is actually real value. I've been a big fan. I believe that every brokerage should have some kind of CTO kind of person who comes who evaluates technology, not just for the brokerage, but to disseminate to the agents.
Absolutely.
Because I think the trouble for most real estate agents, like I said, is there's so much technology. If there's like 100 CRMs, how do you pick it?
Yeah.
And I think those are the people, they see their 100 CRMs and they say, well, just forget it. I'm just going to stick with Excel, because they're intimidated.
Yeah.
And if you multiply that by all the different tech tools, I think that the real estate agents are just going to say, forget it. But if a brokerage actually has people and their job is just to go through the tech, curate it, figure out what's good, what isn't, and then the good stuff they get subscriptions for, and they actually teach the agents how to use it and they provide support, that's a great value add. That would be one thing.
Yeah.
The second thing I think a brokerage could do is, again, with the specialization. If you're a brokerage, and you could specialize on unusual things like distressed properties, or again, like high-rise condos or multi-unit buildings or foreign investors or seniors or whatever. If you could do that, then I think what you could do is you could attract like-minded real estate agents who are good and into that.
Right.
And then you could have a good team of people that are into helping seniors or into high-rise condos or something. And so your brokerage becomes the place to be for those types of agents.
Yeah.
The third thing, and this one is really interesting, and it goes against everything I said in a way, which is, and this is in the book, and this is actually one of my favorite parts. In Real Estate at a Crossroads, we interviewed this guy, Anthony Vitale. He's actually from the East Coast. I think he's originally from New York.
Yeah.
But anyone who's interested, if you reach out to me, I will hook you up with him, because he does consulting and he's a brilliant guy. His take is totally different than mine. And at first he was telling me this, I'm like, I don't agree with you, so I'm going to ignore you. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought this is a great idea. And what he said is, if you turn the brokerage, the brick and mortar brokerage, instead of being a waste of space, into a value add itself, you make the brokerage valuable. And here's what I mean by that. If you make the brokerage a place people want to go to, not just to find a real estate agent, but they want to go there because they have classes for people. I'm talking about like for home buyers or home sellers. Every Thursday, they have an interior designer who comes, and this interior designer will give you free lessons of how to like decorate your home, for example.
Yep.
On Tuesdays, they have a contractor who comes over, and the contractor teaches you how to like refinish your basement or how to do simple things you could do on your own. If you have coffee Saturdays, if you make it so people actually want to go to your brokerage, not just because they need an agent, but because they're into houses, because they moved or they want to move and they want to make their house beautiful. If you make your brokerage a desirable place for people to go to, then you will also attract these top agents. And I love this idea, and it totally goes against, in some ways, like the techie, whatever, virtual thing. But I think if you have a brick and mortar thing, if you're willing to make your place appealing, maybe you could even have a band there. I don't know. I mean, there's lots of things you could do. And then what you do is you're bringing people in, and then these people, you're generating leads. You could work out, reciprocity deals with these other people, like the interior designers. You refer them to you, they refer people to them. Like there's lots of cool stuff you can do with it. And it makes your brokerage, if you do something like that, then it's hard for someone like EXP or Redfin to compete, right? Because if you could go and you could pay EXP, someone from EXP, the same commission, or you can go to this brokerage that's going to show you how to remodel your home and do all of these cool things, you may prefer to go to the brokerage.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and so we know that a lot of brokerages may or may not say, all right, let's do that. But that's also something that agents can do on whatever scale individually. I mean, they can do the home buyer seminars, the seller seminars, the interior design. They could do the exact same thing, or a group of them could within their own office.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that'd be huge. And then there's their content, because they could in turn video or live stream those. And now you've got Google involved and YouTube and all the social media accounts.
Yes. I love the way you're thinking. No, absolutely. You want to make as much content as possible. And this is a way you're serving people in front of you, like the actual humans, but then you're also creating stuff online for other people. You
got it. And that's where you would have found them. Because if you looked up, home buyer seminar in LA or something like that, you would have found that person that's doing these live streaming home buyer seminars or live home buyer seminars, and you may have gone.
Right. And I really think, like I said, the key is to make it something that the clients would want, and so a lot of times people try to just make sales pitches, because you just want to talk about yourself. Yes. But if you really make it where it's genuinely about the interior designer and the way of picking like the right window shades, and that's really what it's about, but you just happen to be there, as a real estate agent, then that's a great way of like getting traffic and getting people to like you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the way too that they're going to set themselves apart from the tech companies that are just generating leads.
Right.
And then selling them back.
Right.
So, yeah. So are there any tools? I know you mentioned the CRM, automated social, anything that stands out over the next few years that an agent, if they're looking at this and saying, all right, I got to get something now, because we're in a new decade. And this is time to start implementing. What do they need to implement right now to make sure that they're set up?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, ultimately, I'll just say this. Ultimately, the most important tech is something you're going to use. So the number one rule is you have to kind of understand it and you have to be willing to use it. My house, and I hate to be honest, it's full of all these gadgets that I accumulated that I just don't use because either I can't figure them out or they're too complicated or I just don't have the time. So the number one rule is it has to be something you're going to use. But beyond that, I think obviously I'm going to just take for granted that everybody's on social media. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The one thing I will say about social media is that I think that if you're not doing either video and or audio content, you should be, unless you absolutely hate being on video. But we talked about this in the book quite a bit, and one of the things that was pretty clear is that when you have video, especially like these live videos and stuff, people like it. It shows your personality, it makes people interested. We had Tom Ferry in the book, and he talked about this, and he said that one of the big things that scares people away from doing video is that they want their hair perfect and they want everything perfect. And you could see, obviously, my hair is not perfect.
Yeah. Mine's absolutely perfect, but just there's not much of it.
If you let these little things scare you away from doing video, you just never do it. But people don't mind. At least I don't know. Actually, I have to be honest with you. I was thinking of wearing a hat for this. But most people don't mind. If your hair isn't perfect or your dress isn't perfectly ironed or whatever, because they want to see you and they see the real person. So the one thing I want to say about social media is I think people should be using video more. Yeah. Because it's so easy to do. And people like it, and you could do Facebook Live, Instagram Live, and then YouTube. Right, there you go.
And all they need is their phone.
All you need is your phone. The quality is so good. And then you could do fun things if you want, like filters, and you could geotag stuff. I mean, it's just so easy, and it's so engaging. Another thing I'm a big fan of is voice. So I have a show, actually, The Real Estate Flash, which is a show on Amazon's Alexa, The Real Estate Flash. You could also get it on Spotify and other things. It's easy to get something like that started. And it's like podcasts. Now, again, that won't be for everybody, but I think for people that like to talk, I like to talk, obviously, they're great because people will listen, they'll learn about you, teach them stuff. It doesn't take that much time. They're fairly easy to distribute, and it gives you authority in the field.
Sure does.
But there's a few other tools I want to mention. One of them is I'm a big fan of these sort of virtual reality stuff. We were hinting at before. Again, I've got my virtual reality background behind me.
Yeah.
But there are companies like Roomy, Roomy. I have no affiliation with them, but I like them. And they will do things like virtual staging. There's another one, Virtual Tour Cafe. There's a few companies that are like this, and they'll essentially virtually stage a house. So they'll make a house that's empty look like it's got beautiful furniture in there for your pictures.
Yes.
And as you know, like online, like these pictures make a huge difference. People will skip past your listing if it has crummy pictures.
Sure will.
So things like Roomy are great with this virtual staging. I'm a big fan of that. Easy to use, not that expensive. Another company I like, it's a startup. It's actually they're from South Carolina, so not too far from you, called Porched, Porchd. And what they do, and I think this is such a cool idea, what they do is real estate agents upload pictures to them, and then they will submit the pictures for like anonymous votes, whether the picture looks good or not.
Interesting.
And so people vote, and they'll say it's a good picture, bad picture, and they'll point things out about the picture. So you may think a picture is great, but if a whole bunch of other people look at it and they think it's a terrible picture, I'd go with them rather than, your opinion.
Absolutely. It's public perception, not yours.
It's public perception. And a lot of times people will notice stuff, like they'll notice the toilet's open, or that they'll say like it's funny, you'll see these pictures and the room might be fine, but then it has like a bunch of like clutter or like, garbage thrown all over the place. If you're going to do that, you're probably better off just not having the picture at all, so that's important. And also the other thing is real estate agents can use it not just to pick the right pictures, but they can use it to twist their seller's arm into making little changes.
Yes.
So, if you've got this like gaudy orange and purple room or something like that the seller just loves because they love orange and purple, and you post this, on Porched, and it gets terrible reviews, that could be just the leverage you need as a real estate agent to say, look, Mr. Seller, like you may love orange and purple, and maybe I do too, but other people don't. And so we need to change this to something else.
That's cool.
There's another company called Revaluate, which I also am a big fan of. And what they do is they use artificial intelligence to predict when people are likely to move. Which I think is very cool. So people often move after certain major events, like marriages, funerals,
births, things like that. Yep.
People going to college, things like that. So what they'll do is they'll help you go through your list and figure out who on your list. And I don't know how they do this. I've intentionally not wanted to know how they do this because it's a little bit scary that they don't. So they'll go, but everybody knows everything anyway. So like at this point, what does Facebook not know about you?
They know everything.
They know everything, but they'll go through your list and they'll figure out like who's most likely to move. And so if you have a list of say 1,000 people, you could like spam your 1,000 people until the cows come home, hoping something goes. Or if there's say 30 people on your list that are most likely to move, why not really target them by
Right.
taking them out for coffee,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, or taking them out to dinner, or sending them like a nice gift, or something. Now you're not going to do that to your whole 1,000-person list,
Right.
but if there's, say, 30 people, 20 people, 50 people that are very likely to move, why not direct your efforts to those people?
Absolutely.
No, I love that. And one other company I like is this company, TLC Engine. TLC Engine, they're another startup, and they're also very good about helping you kind of calculate the true cost of your house, including like the quality of the neighborhood, the commute time, how difficult it is to get to work, and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah.
And
Okay.
so they help people make more intelligent decisions of what house would be ideal for them.
Interesting. Well, those are great. Well, we are, I mean, I'm gonna have to go look at those. We will put the links to those so people can check them out down there as well. Any last words that you want to leave the agents with that are watching this on tech, the future, competing, anything?
I will say that, and this is something that's interesting to me at least, I think if you're someone who's new to real estate or you're thinking about going into it, you should be clear-eyed about the future. If you're really good at using tech and you're comfortable with specializing and you're willing to try new things, and this is fun to you to do video and audio and stuff like that, then I think real estate can be a fantastic career. And I think you can help people in a very important part of their life find a home, or move, or deal with emergency situations. I think you can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
But if that isn't your thing, you have to just decide whether real estate really is worth going into, and as you know, real estate is a very low barrier of entry to start.
Yes.
But if you're not into some of these things, it's going to be an uphill climb for you. And you just may want to decide whether it's worth investing a year or two into this, if that just isn't your bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those that have been in it for a while, embrace this change in technology, you'd probably say to them as well.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do agents, how do people that are watching this, how can they get in touch with you?
So I am easily available on LinkedIn. If you just look up Gregory Charlop, CHRLOP, probably my name there. I'm also pretty good with Facebook, so you can look for me there. Those are probably the two best ways. I'm always happy to chat with people. I'm happy to speak at conferences.
Awesome.
The book is out there, so a lot of the stuff I mentioned is in the book, Real Estate at a Crossroads. So you can get it as a book or an audio. The audio book is available. And then also the Real Estate Flash I do almost every day, every weekday. So if you just want to hear the latest real estate updates and stuff, and some bonus tips, that's on your Alexa device or Spotify.
Good, good. Well, thank you so much for doing this session, joining us, talking about this. It's such a great subject and important for anyone that's in this industry. And they've got to embrace these ideas and the things that you're talking about. Otherwise, they may not be here. So, Dr. Charlop, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and awesome job. And I know we will continue a little bit in the advanced session. So hang on.
Great. Thank you.